Hello and welcome back to the Punchers Chance podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be talking Jaron Boots Ennis versus David Avenaysan, and of course Skye Nicolson on the undercard as well. We're going to be previewing next weekend's fights, including Amanda Serrano and a certain YouTuber who's fighting. And as well as that, we're going to be talking about a big Saudi card coming up in the future that they've just released the trailer for. Let's jump straight into it. Last weekend's fights, Jaron Ennis. I think you probably won the predictions this week because of that main event. And what a performance from Jaron Ennis it was, by the way. A seriously, seriously good performance.
Yeah, really impressive. I'm lucky. Last week I swapped my prediction right at the end, so I think I nicked it with that one. But yeah, like you said, really good performance. I thought against Avenaysan, who's a very tidy fighter, he used the body shots really well to sort of slow him down, and you could see once he got to that 5, 6 rounds, it was just a bit of a struggle for him and to keep him off, and eventually he got caught with that left hook on the counter that dropped him. Obviously went back to the corner, but the corner had obviously seen that he'd had enough, and those body shots, I think, were taking their toll more than anything else.
Yeah, to be honest, I was surprised about how quickly Boots came out, and how like almost like willing he was to go for that finish. You know, all the shots he was throwing, he was really putting some into it. And I've seen people online saying, Boots is overrated. He got caught with a lot in that fight. And he did get caught more than usual. But that's inevitable. That's what happens. If you try and put more into your shots, then you're not in as good a position to get out the way. That's the trade-off that he took, and it paid off for him. He got the finish, obviously, in the fifth. I'm going to be honest, when I was watching the fight, that first knockdown in the first round, the body shot that was obviously a low blow. I didn't think it was low the first time I watched it, and I thought he just absolutely cleaned him out in the first. And then obviously I watched back the replay, and it was like straight right in the cherries, proper painful one. But yeah, it's just a really good performance. I watched it, I'm like, why on earth did I think there wasn't going to be a finish? Why did I possibly predict that? Um, but I just didn't expect Boots to come with quite that much venom. I don't think I've seen that side of him so much in his career. He's almost switched to, now I'm willing to go in there and get people out of there.
Yeah, like we both said last week, I think we were both aiming for sort of a decision prediction just because we know how tough Avenaysan is. And like you said, Boots went in there to try and get the early stoppage, left himself open. He did get caught with a couple of shots. And we've seen that Avenaysan is dangerous with that overhand right. He showed that against the likes of Josh Kelly, but with the body shots, I think he was just getting to him. The one or two were low, like you said, but I think it was just because he was really throwing everything behind him with a mixture of Avenaysan probably leading in quite low. He just caught him with them low body shots, but there was no doubt in my mind the way it was going from the first bell right until the finish that he was quite dominant in that fight, really.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I just think he's gone up in my estimations as a fighter, and I already thought highly of him. I thought he was brilliant, and Eddie Hearn's been banging on about he's the fourth best pound for pound in the world, and all of this stuff. And I obviously didn't think that much of him, but I certainly thought he was a brilliant fighter. But after that performance, you do start to think he's only got the one welterweight belt. You do think that possibly, he's going to be looking at picking up some more belts and really coming along as a brilliant fighter. Now he's under Matchroom. I think possibly he's not been particularly well promoted up to this point when you consider, how much talent he's got, and he's only got that one world. But that's what the big promoters are for. And yeah, just a really brilliant performance. There was some lovely combinations in there. There was, I think it was the third round. He threw a lovely like left hook, no uppercut, left hook straight, and just all three of them landed. And it was that I was like, yeah, this guy is in complete control, really picking him apart. And that's what you've got to do against tough opponents. You've got to be willing to get caught with a couple shots, knowing and backing yourself that you think, yeah, yes, he may be, landing shots, but I know that I'm landing more often, more powerfully, and over the course of the fight, that I'm eventually going to finish him. And he did, and that's all that matters. I think as well. it was a broken jaw. I think they've said Avenaysan broke his jaw. I haven't seen like an official release or official thing saying that, but there's a lot of talk that that's why the fight was finished, because that shot in the fifth broke his jaw. Which, if he carried on after that, fair play to him, because even after that knockdown, Boots was really trying to take his head off throughout the rest of that fifth round.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a broken jaw. I thought it was just the body shots because you could really hear them when he was throwing them. But yeah, like I said, if it's a broken jaw, is hardly anything you can do as a fighter at that point. So it's probably the smart decision to keep yourself for another day, especially when you know you're in a fight that you're probably at worst, best case scenario, sorry, you just survive until the end of the 12th round. But in terms of Matchroom, I think the plan for them obviously is to sort of build Boots as the American star. They've got AJ over here, sort of their UK brand, but we've got like Crawford, Tank, like a lot of big American stars over that way, and I think Boots is sort of becoming Matchroom's version of that now. And I think that's what Eddie Hearn sees him as, and they're going to try and build him towards those big American fights, big American fight nights.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the fact that they've done a homecoming fight in Philly, um, makes complete sense because of that. You want to build around him and build a support and build a base that he can then. And if you can get that home support really big and strong, people will travel for you and people will support you, and that's what you need when you're trying to demand these big fights in these big stadiums. If you've got that big support behind you, then you're halfway there. The conversation becomes a lot easier then. Somebody else who probably had a more of a performance that we expected from Boots Ennis, to be honest. Skye Nicolson won the fight 12 rounds, won. I think she won all 12 rounds on all three judges' cards, but she certainly won basically every round. It's just the kind of performance we've come to expect from herself at this point in her career, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much like we said, as expected from Skye Nicolson at this point. You just know she's going to clean up every round. She won 190 on all three judges' scorecards. Another dominant performance. She just shows her skill level. It's just she is one of the best in terms of women's boxing, like skill and tactically, she is the best. But yeah, like the same issue we probably had with Shakur Stevenson last weekend. It's probably not the most entertaining for certain fans, and not everyone enjoys it. But there's no doubt that when she gets in that ring, more than likely she is going to get the decision. And obviously, she's eyeing up the likes of Serrano now. We've talked about Elizabeth Ashova being a potential opponent. I think until maybe she's in a mix with someone like that, then maybe we're going to see these sort of picking up every round, winning quite comfortably on the scorecards kind of fights.
Yeah, I realise now I said 12 rounds, and I didn't mean that. I did mean 10 rounds. The reason I said 12 rounds is because in my head, I was thinking about the fact Skye's talked a lot about the fact that she thinks she's better over 12 rounds. And obviously, Serrano has fought over 12 rounds in her career. So I was mixing up my future point I was going to say about possibly that fight happening at 12 rounds before anyone in the comments go, oh, you thought that women fought 12 rounds, you idiot. I know, I messed up, so what? But no, what I was going to say as well with Skye is that I don't necessarily think that she doesn't have fight in her. I think to suggest that she's nothing but this technical fighter that can win fights comfortably, I think would probably be unfair to her. But certainly, if you can go about every single fight with basically not getting hit with anything and not risking, yourself getting hurt, she's going to have a long, very successful career if she can keep putting in performances like that. And I think she said that in her thing. She wants to stay. I think she said she wants to stay pretty and she wants to, keep her memory, and that's fair enough. If that's your aim, but eventually a fight will come along where it will ask more of you than that. And when it does, I'd really like to see her be able to turn it on and make a fight of it and win that fight, because I think she's a brilliant fighter. I don't think I've ever seen a female boxer so dominant in terms of a skill gap as Skye is at the moment from the rest of the division. Obviously, Katie Taylor, Chantelle Cameron, Amanda Serrano, people like this have done excellent things for the female female sport and have pioneered it and have these huge fights. And obviously Serrano, Katie Taylor will be a huge fight when that happens. But I just think Skye at this point in her career is doing things or is at a level that I didn't see those other women at. And I think if we can see Skye Nicolson, Amanda Serrano, I know there's a big weight gap at the moment, 2 weight categories. If we can see that fight before Serrano retires, I think it would be a brilliant moment. If nothing else, it will be a huge fight for female boxing and a way to kind of pass the torch on to the next person to carry that on.
Yeah, in terms of, like you said, the skill gap for Skye Nicolson, I think it's as to be expected from. She's obviously a former Olympian. Like, would have had a lot of amateur fights. Would be very technically skilled, and it's the thing of punching and not getting punched. That's the whole aim of boxing. At the end of the day, that's what wins you fights, and that's what she goes out there to do. Like, you don't pick up extra points for taking more punches to the face. Like, if anything, the smart thing to do is to not get hit like she plans to do. It will be interesting in future fights when she gets pulled into a bit of a dog fight, which we probably haven't seen her in before, how she sort of phased with that, whether she gets a bit unstuck when someone really sticks it on her and she has to sort of go punch for punch with someone, what happens then? But she could surprise us and have a bit of the dog fight in her as well and be able to mix it up if needed. And she just hasn't had to show it yet. But yeah, the Serrano fight would be, like I said, I think it'd be a good passing of the torch moment. Personally, for me, I think Skye Nicolson would win that fight, but it would be a very good one for her in terms of her career, just to have that name on her record in terms of someone in Serrano, like you said, who's done so much for women's boxing and the sport.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I spent this week. I was at work and I was doing the housekeeping in the hotel, so I had a lot of time to just sort of listen to podcasts and think to myself. And I was thinking about why Shakur Stevenson is such a hated fighter. And I thought that this is I wonder why this is. And I think the US boxing and the British boxing, I think we're to blame for some of this as well. We have this real kind of drive for professional fighting, professional boxing in terms of the Americans. Obviously, the Americans love, a big knockout, a big shot, a showstopper fighter. Over in Britain, we put a lot of pride into a fighter that, they might not be the most technically brilliant fighter in the world, but they will, they'll drop their hands and they'll have a slugfest for 12 rounds and see who comes out better. But then when you talk about, the likes of Australia, Ukraine, Russia, the countries that create very good Olympians, very good amateur boxers, um, it's much more that amateur style. And I think over in America, there's this sort of, being a pro is more of an attractive concept than it is being an amateur. And the fact that Skye, Liam Parrow did it against Subriel Matias. We've obviously seen people like Vasil Lomachenko has done it, where you sort of bring that amateur style to the professional ranks, and it doesn't necessarily earn you the most fans, and it doesn't necessarily mean people are going to flock to watch you fight. But at the end of the day, if you're making millions and you've got a few belts around your waist, I'm sure they're pretty happy with what they've done in their career, as opposed to losing a fight because you decided you would just slog for it and see what happens.
Yeah, I think the main issue is just a lot of boxing fans or people who watch boxing. Majority are probably going to be casual fans. They're not fans that are sitting there watching amateur fights, watching like Olympic fights, and seeing like the technical side of boxing and point scoring and how to win rounds. I think for most people, it's just they're tuning in on the weekend and they just want to see two people going at it and just see someone get knocked out. It's just a human nature. I think it's just a animalistic nature to just want to see something like that. And I think that's what, when you see a big knockout and you see fighters who just like over the years, like Mike Tyson and people like AJ now, who just get in there, clean someone out. I think that's what sticks in people's memories the most, is those moments. So I think that's how they sort of draw the biggest crowds.
Yeah, without a doubt, they weren't there on a cold, freezing night in the Vale Sports Arena like we were. But a fight that will have plenty of casual fans watching and plenty of big, huge boxing fans watching, and everyone in between. Obviously, the big Riyadh season card that's taking place in America, in Los Angeles, Israel Madrimov versus Terence Crawford. Eminem's performing. Unbelievable event, unbelievable. And they've just released the trailer for that main event. And every time Riyadh season release a trailer, it just gets better every time. Every time I think they've done it. This is the best thing they could make, and it just seems to get better. And I can't wait. I can't wait for that fight.
Yeah, going to be a massive night. I think it's the first real uh, chance we're going to see a Riyadh season card outside of Saudi, and we've already seen how good they are. But I think it's going to be a real special night out in America, headlined obviously by a massive card between them two. And yeah, like you said, the trailer is brilliant. Between was it 3 or 4 minutes long, and it just really showcases quite quickly how much those them two fighters have had to go through to get themselves in the position they're in now, and all the sacrifices and hard work that these athletes have had to put in over the years to put themselves in the position. It's like everyone sees them in these big fight nights and all the money they make, but not many people really stop to think of everything they've put in over the years to get themselves to this point.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think for me, if the Saudi boxing era and this huge influx of money and great fights happening, if that goes away in 5-10 years time, if they can leave one thing for boxing, in my eyes, it's things like this: being willing to promote a show within an inch of its life, not just saying, yeah, people will show up anyway, people will watch anyway. The way that they've built cards and they promote the cards and the excitement around the cards that they build, and just it's a whole show, it's a whole spectacle. And I think boxing got to the point where it was struggling, where they sort of decided that you know the boxing purists will show up no matter what, and we sell out the fights that we expect to sell out, and we sell well the fights that we expect to sell well. So all is good, things all that is that. Whereas actually what we're seeing is if you really just put your heart and soul into promoting these shows and build things like this and have big artists performing at the shows and things like that, it just makes for a brilliant show. And when we see Andy Ruiz, Jared Anderson, Andy Cruz, brilliant, one of the best amateurs of all time, Isaac Cruz, Pitbull Cruz fighting as well, all these brilliant fighters, it just gets you excited for it. And everything that they're doing around it, yeah, I just can't wait for it. And fingers crossed, for me, fingers crossed, Terence Crawford comes out with the win on that one. Just because I like having him in around that pound for pound picture. And also people are tipping that fight with Boots Ennis, and I know this fight's at super welter for Crawford, but if those two could match up at welter or super welterweight, I think that would be an unbelievable fight and a proper huge fight for boxing.
Yeah, I think that's the aim, and if obviously Eddie and Matchroom Crawford like to get that big fight made in America would be huge. I think it'd be welterweight more likely because I know Crawford I think is stepping up to super welter for this fight. But yeah, if he can get through, and like as good as Crawford is, it's still a very tough test coming up. And but I think he'll have enough to get through it, and then set up obviously then that fight with Boots in the future, probably the end of this year, maybe possibly next year, depending on other fights they've got to get through. But like we were speaking earlier as well about Boots with Philadelphia, like you said, a homecoming fight for him on the weekend. I don't think there's many better places in America to have a fighter to build up, because Philadelphia is a mad sporting city. They've got some of the biggest teams in America. I'm sure obviously Rocky Balboa, Philadelphia as well. It makes for a great sort of American boxing story, and to have them to face off, probably what would be 1 and 2 in America, possibly you could argue. It would be a massive night of boxing, and with Riyadh seasons back in as well, there's no doubt that they'd build a great card, promote it really well, and everyone's going to be really excited for it.
Yeah, I think for me, people talk about he's on a different level, Terence Crawford, and he is. What he's done in his career, he's in that pound for pound picture because he's what a three-weight champion, and to do that is no easy feat. But this fight is at welterweight. This fight wouldn't be at pound for pound. It doesn't matter how good you were at super light or how good you were at super welter. It's how good you are at welterweight. And Boots Ennis has proven that he's as good or near enough as good as it gets at welterweight. And so, like you say, it would be a really, really close fight and a really, brilliant fight to watch. A fight that, or a fight card and a fight main event that I'm unbelievably excited for, based off last time, is the Magnificent Seven card in Birmingham in the Resorts World Arena, headlined by Nathan Heaney, Brad Pauls. I mean, this is the best format in boxing, headlined by what was one of the fights of the year in the first fight. It's got likes of Chantelle Cameron on there as well. This is going to be just another all-timer brilliant event, I think.
Yeah, Queensbury have done and Frank Warren's done such a good job at building these Magnificent Seven cards ever since he started them. I think it was around this time last year. He's had a good few now. They've just been brilliant every time. I think the first one may have started off with Nathan Heaney when he won the British title against Denzel Bentley. I think that was one of the first Magnificent Seven cards. And that was such a huge performance from Heaney. Obviously gone into a title defence against Brad Pauls. Like you said, it was one of the fights of the year so far, as many of the British title fights have been this year. And I've got no doubt that this rematch is going to be just as good. It's going to be, I think, another very close fight. Obviously a draw last time out, but I think Heaney will obviously probably go on to predictions. Heaney probably would have learned what he needed to from that first fight. But yeah, from top to bottom, again, another brilliant card.
Yeah, I think, like you said, we'll get onto it. And Nathan Heaney in that first fight for me, it looked like he was going to cruise to victory, and it looked really dominant, really exciting, and that he'd be able to kick on to that European level and beyond, and it was really exciting. And then, Brad Pauls never said quit, and he got himself back into the fight, and it started to actually look like he might go on to win this fight. And as someone who really does like Nathan Heaney, and I think he's a brilliant fighter to have in British boxing with the support that comes with him, I was starting to think, wow, he is going to lose this. And then he just, once again, he just somehow stayed out. I remember thinking, I think he got knocked down twice, if I remember correctly. Or no, so that was it. He stayed on his feet. And I just thought, there's no way this guy's still standing. There is absolutely no way that this guy should still be on his feet. But like he said, he bit down on his gum shield and he said to himself, he's not going down. He kept to himself to that. And yeah, just top to bottom, we can go through it. Solomon Dacre's obviously no longer fighting David Adelaide, which is a shame, but Michael Webster step in. Still a good English title fight for Solomon Dacre's. Zach Parker, Ezra Taylor, Echo Esserman. There's just some brilliant fights up and down this card, and it makes you excited. Every fight's a 10 or 12 rounder. There's a title on every single fight. And what more could you want?
Yeah, exactly like you said. This brilliant, brilliant card. Loads of good British fighters on it. One of Harry's favourite fighters, Johnny Fisher, is probably going to be keeping a close eye on that Solomon Dacre's fight. And I don't know whether he's going to still plan to have the Adelaide fight after this, because I know Dacre's and Webster faced each other before, and Dacre's got a unanimous decision victory last time. So whether Adelaide will still won that fight afterwards, obviously because he's missed out due to injury, or whether Fisher will be eyeing the winner of this one. But yeah, from top to bottom, really, really good fight. It'd be good to see Chantelle Cameron back. Her first fight since she lost to Katie Taylor. Obviously, she's had the split from Matchroom. There was a lot of arguments there about how she'd been sort of built compared to Katie Taylor. And it's like a rebuilding period for her now to put herself back towards that sort of world title picture. I'm sure she still wants that trilogy fight with Katie Taylor. Whether that will happen or not, we don't know, but this is the first step towards making that happen. And it's all going to be topped off with what's probably going to be another classic British title fight.
Yeah, with that Chantelle Cameron, like you say, I think it would be nice to see Chantelle Cameron promoted as a sort of main fighter. Queensbury don't have a huge amount of female fighters. So when you're talking female fighters from Queensbury, Chantelle Cameron's top of the bill. And I think she probably will be promoted as such, which will be good to see. And if she wins this fight, gets that WBC interim, it should set herself up for the winner of Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, if that's the fight she wants. Possibly we see the first female world title fight on a Riyadh season card, because I think that would be a huge fight if it did happen, and maybe a future 5v5 event if they do another match in versus Queensberry. Then obviously Chantelle Cameron, Katie Taylor, with the beef between Eddie Hearn and Chantelle Cameron and all of this sort of things, that could set itself up for a brilliant fight. And what we'll do, that one is on the Boxing News app for the prediction, so we could do our predictions for that one on the Boxing News app after we talk about quickly the fighter we've mentioned a number of times already, Amanda Serrano. It's a shame it's not Katie Taylor. It's not Katie Taylor because, as Harry called him, a certain mug is not fighting Mike Tyson anymore. But obviously Amanda Serrano is still fighting, still staying active. And after, it's good to see. It's nice to see her fighting. And it's not in her home country of Puerto Rico as it's supposed to be. But I still think it would be a good fight and a good way for her to keep active.
Yeah, like you said, I think it's just a matter of keeping active, ready for that Katie Taylor fight, which everyone's excited for, should be excited for, really, in November. But yeah, after obviously all the controversy of the fight that was meant to be in Puerto Rico with the hate eye and missing out on that fight, and then the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight getting postponed, it's been a bit of a unlucky couple of months for Serrano, but hopefully all goes well on the weekend. She can get back in the ring, get the few rounds in that she needs ready for the fight in November then with Katie Taylor, which is going to be one of the biggest fights in women's boxing.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I've said this every time. I've said every single time, I'm not interested in Jake Paul fighting. I don't care for it, and I'm not going to watch it. And every time I've been a huge hypocrite, because the first thing I've done when I've woken up in the morning is I've gone and found my dodgy Weatherspoon site and watched the fight. So I'm as bad as the next guy. But this one, I'm going to be honest, I'm saying this, I do not care about Jake Paul, Michael Perry whatsoever. I know right now I could go on to Bet365, put £100, like other gambling sites are available, put £100 on a knockout, and my money would be safe. So I'm not worried. I'm not actually going to watch this fight. I will probably watch the Serrano fight. Um, but do you care for it? Are you, just sort of a bit out. Sorry, I've asked you a question there, and I'm going to not let you answer it. Jake Paul is ranked 105 in the cruiserweight division. 105. Below him is John Hedges, who fought fairly recently, British 10-0, brilliant cruiserweight. 103, Tommy McCarthy, who lost to Chev Clark last time out. These are some really top fighters. What has he done to earn that ranking at 105? Who has he beat that goes, yeah, you know what? He lost to Tommy Fury, who doesn't deserve 105 ranking anyway. Um, yeah. Sorry, that was a really tangent, but it just pissed me off when I read it earlier. I was just like, why? How has that happened?
No, I completely agree with you. Like, imagine being, like you said, like the likes of John Hedges and looking at that and just thinking, like, how am I below? Like, you put Jake Paul in a fight with John Hedges, like, personally for me, is clearly only one winner, and it's just the way he's been built, and it's the way that this sort of all influencer boxings work. They've built them up to sort of look like real boxers when it's not really, is it? Like, fair play to him, you've got to have respect from as you would anyone getting in the ring, but in terms of levels, there's a different gap between what these influencer boxers are doing and what these pro fighters who have been doing it for years, it day in, day out. Like, but yeah, in terms of the Jake Paul fight on the weekend, I'm not overly interested. I just feel like the whole influencer thing's like going a bit stale at the moment, personally for me, unless it's going to be like a mega fight that everyone would sort of be interested in, like a Jake Paul and KSI fight, just to sort of see who the winner is out of them two. Then I think that's the only sort of fight I'd be interested in watching, really.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm going to preface this with saying I wouldn't step in the ring with, Nate Diaz, with Tyron Woodley, with people like this. I wouldn't do it because I think I'd lose. But I also don't claim to be a future world champion. But if you or me were to fight a basketball player, three retired MMA fighters, and then lose to a very poor professional boxer, we would be nowhere near. We wouldn't even be a professional fighter, would we? We'd be nowhere near those rankings. So he's a big name. I get that, but BoxRec, I'm disappointed in you. I like you, BoxRec. I use you every single week for the podcast. But 105, really, really? There's never mind. We'll move on for that to something a bit more exciting. We'll move on to the predictions for the Magnificent Seven card, the bit of the week where we get to have a little bit of competition. I'm assuming they have all 7 fights on this one, so this will be interesting. The first one is Shabazz Masood versus Marvin Serrano at featherweight 8-rounder. Serrano's someone we've watched fight before. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head who he fought that we watched. Possibly, was it Conor McIntosh? Or I can't remember actually.
He fought down in
No, it
Cardiff against
was
someone, didn't he? Or was
Joshua
it Joshua John?
John fought him. Yeah. Yeah, it was Joshua John because Solano came in overweight at Super Bantam, I believe.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so that's an interesting
Yeah.
fight. One that I'm going to predict a Masood decision because Solano's a tough bugger and I don't think he's going to get him out of there.
Yeah, Masood decision's the same as what I've gone for. We've got the same idea there.
I think with those ones, when you see a South American on the other side, you think, yeah, no, it's going to be a points decision on this one. Zach Parker versus Jack Armfield, super middleweight 10-rounder. Parker KO, I think it's got to be. I would be surprised if it was anything else.
I'm going Parker decision.
Wow, fair play.
That's one to split us up already.
Perfectly possible. Yeah, but I back him. I back him to get the finish. What do you think? Ezra Taylor versus Carlos Alberto Lamela, light heavyweight 10-rounder. What's your prediction for that one?
Same again with the South Americans. You can never trust them to be stopped. So I'm going to go for Ezra Taylor decision.
Yep, surprise, surprise. I've gone for the same. I've done it a few times. I've predicted against them. I predicted them to get knocked out, and they never have. So I'm not gonna do it again. Owen Cooper versus Echo Esserman, welterweight. This one's for the English and European. What's your prediction for this one? This one's a tough one to call, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say this one's really close because Cooper performed really well in his last fight to win the title. Esserman's obviously coming off a recent loss, but I think the bit of extra experience from Echo Esserman's going to pay the difference here. So I've gone Echo Esserman by decision.
That's interesting. I've gone Owen Cooper by decision. I think it's going to be one of those ones where they've picked the fight at the right time, but I could be wrong. But yeah, that's what this is for. Chantelle Cameron, I'm going to go for a points decision on that one. I'm pretty confident she's going to get the win. I don't think she's going to be gunning for a knockout, so I don't think that one will come, but I definitely think she'll get the win.
Yeah, same for me. Points decision I've gone for with Chantelle Cameron.
And then Ashley Lane, Andrew Kane at bantamweight, 12-rounder. This one's for the British and Commonwealth bantamweight. I'm going to go for a Kane KO, which, for a bantamweight fight isn't always the most likely, but I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, me and you have gone the same. I think we've both looked at the knockout percentage and had a similar thought.
Possibly. I also, when you look at it, with 12 fights and only gone 39 rounds in his career, then you're starting to think that possibly a knockout will be coming, whoever it goes to. And then the main event, this is a really hard one to call. I don't know what to go for this one.
Especially after last time, a real 50-50 fight, I think. And we said last time Heaney was close, I think 2 or 3 times to being dropped, and I don't know how he stayed on his feet. And the fact he stayed on his feet was the reason he'd won the fight in the end, because it was a draw. If the knockdown had happened, it would have gone Brad Paul's way, but he was comfortable in the first 5 to 6 rounds. I thought Heaney last time, and he got a bit overconfident, I'd say, and dragged himself into a fight where he didn't need to. So I think this time he's going to box a lot smarter, be similar to how he fought when he picked up the title against Denzel Bentley, be a bit more on the back foot counters, and I think he'll pick up a decision win on Saturday night.
Same sort of boat. There's a part of me that wants to say it's going to be another draw, but I don't know if that's a smart prediction for the predictions. I know you get more points for it, but also it's not particularly likely. I'm going to go for a Heaney points decision. I am, because I do think it's the more likely, but I wouldn't be surprised if we got another draw from that one. I think it's going to be a really close fight all in all. And then you just got to do the rounds as well. I think I'm looking at about, I don't know, 54, we'll say. I never really know what to do for these. Actually, 54 seems low. I'm going to go 60. Submitted.
Done 60. I think I've gone 68.
What's that looking at? Oh, it's only got bets for the Cameron, Kane and Heaney fight, so the odds aren't particularly
yeah, we got the same one.
Interesting on that one. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. You've won the last one, didn't you? So you're probably 2 up now.
Yeah.
We'll have to go through and properly
I'm
check
not sure.
and get
We'll
a
have to check.
going. But yeah, we'll say
all we
2
know
up
is
for now.
Harry's definitely bottom.
Yeah, definitely. And we do need to get a belt sorted at some point. We definitely need to actually get that done. We said we'd do it. I found a company, but I don't know if I want to shell out 100 quid for a bougie looking belt, but we'll see. Anyway, it's brilliant. Another brilliant week of fighting, another great week of fights. I'm looking forward to, that Magnificent Seven card, and obviously going forward into August, we've got the Ismail Madrimov Terence Crawford fight, and then the big Welsh title fight that we're at down in Llanelli. Exciting content to come for that. We're planning that at the moment. Other than that, as we always say, audio version on Spotify, Twitter for news articles, some news, things like that, Instagram for the reels and other content, YouTube Shorts or YouTube channel. I think that's everywhere you can find us. And thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you all next week for another episode.
Punches chance. Punches Chance Podcast.